César Acuña Peralta was born on August 10, 1952 in Tacubamba, a small district nestled in the hills of Chota, Cajamarca. He was the third of 12 children of Hector Acuña Cabrera, an Andean farmer with strict and silent routines. He would get up before dawn, feed the livestock, work the land, and then go down to the town with the products from his small plot. He sold milk, grains, and fresh vegetables. Despite not knowing how to read or write, Hector had practical intelligence and an exceptional memory. He would mentally calculate each product's value, prices by weight, and daily earnings. He had no employees. His workforce was just his family, his wife Clementina Peralta Alvarado, and their many children. Each one had a specific task. Some took care of the animals, others loaded the products to take to the market, while the youngest helped their mother with the household chores. César Acuña was raised with discipline, sacrifice, constant work, and, above all, a conviction that was strongly instilled in him. Studies were the most important thing. Both Hector and Clementina were convinced that education was the only tool capable of breaking the cycle of poverty, the only path to a different future. That's why, every dawn before the sun came up, their children would get up to first do the farm work, and with their clothes still damp from the dew, they would set out on the way to school. César and his siblings attended the mixed school of Tacubamba. Conditions were precarious: adobe classrooms, stone benches, and worn blackboards. But even so, for their parents, it was a source of immense pride to see them there, sitting in a classroom with a notebook and a pencil in hand. That simple image meant something enormous. None of their children would repeat the same story of illiteracy that they had carried throughout their lives. For the Acuña family, education was the promise of a different destiny, and they were not wrong. What they never imagined was that, thanks to education, their third child would end up becoming a billionaire. But not exactly because of his academic degrees, but because he knew how to turn it into a product, into a mass market and highly profitable service. A business that would not only generate enormous income, but would also become a platform of power capable of propelling him into highly relevant political positions until he became one of the most influential and also most controversial figures in the country. Today we'll learn about César Acuña, a man of humble origins who built a vast educational empire and powerful network, the controversies that surround him, the mindset that defines him, and the truth behind why some admire him while others reject him. After finishing high school in Cajamarca, César Acuña left his hometown and went to Trujillo in 1972 at just 19 years old and with a suitcase full of hopes. At that time, the northern city was becoming one of the most important academic centers in the country, thanks to the prestigious National University of Trujillo. It was there that he entered the Faculty of Chemical Engineering and discovered a completely new world for him, one marked by intellectual competition, academic challenges, and urban opportunities that didn't exist in Tacubamba. Acuña traveled knowing that he had to look for them, find one, and start working at it to pay for his studies. The first thing he did was sell cañazo, a liquor made from sugarcane that he got from the Casa Grande sugar plantation. That, along with other temporary jobs in small businesses, allowed him to survive in the city and make his way. He also found love. Shortly after turning 26, he married Carmen Rosa Núñez Campos, the woman who would become the mother of 3 of his 5 children, César, Richard, and Kelly. And she would become his strategic partner, his most important ally in building the business empire they would establish years later. Achieving that was always on César's mind. His childhood, shaped by forced self-management, became an advantage. He learned to manage limited resources and find opportunities where others saw only shortages. As the years went by, university studies stopped being his priority. He had a strong business instinct that irresistibly drew him in. And among all the ideas that were swirling around in his head, one began to take shape with particular clarity. Acuña watched as hundreds of young people from different provinces arrived in Trujillo full of aspirations, but without the academic preparation needed to face the demanding university entrance exams. He saw them in the streets, hallways, and endless university lines. Young people had hope but lacked tools. Many came with parents carrying their family's dreams. Recognizing that need sparked his first major venture, setting the path for all that followed, the Pre-University Engineering Academy. He started it in 1980 in his father's house, who had also moved to Trujillo in search of better opportunities. That simple and narrow family home became an improvised teaching center. The first classrooms were set up with wooden benches, worn-out tables, and rudimentary blackboards. Even so, thanks to the teaching method, the good results, and the lack of competition, the academy started to become popular. Gradually, more young people from northern provinces arrived, driven by the dream of joining the prestigious National University of Tucumán. The need to grow became evident. It was then that César began looking for a larger place, better located and more in line with his vision for the future. That's how he met José Lynch Gamero, the owner of an old colonial house with wide corridors, high ceilings, and a central courtyard that seemed made to become a campus. In 1985, they signed a 2-year lease contract. It was set to expire in September 1987, and from the very first day, the place began to transform. The main courtyard became a recreation area. The old bedrooms were turned into classrooms, and the walls were covered with posters of formulas, schedules, announcements, and motivational phrases. This was a business model that had existed in Lima for many years, but it was starting to decline there, since the universities had created their own pre-university centers, attracting most of the applicants. However, in Trujillo and other cities in the interior, there was still a huge unmet demand. Thousands of middle and lower class families aspired for their children to become professionals. César Acuña quickly recognized that deep desire. After all, it was the same dream that had motivated his own parents, for their children to have a career. However, ironically, it was a goal that he himself had left unfinished. He had been in university for over 13 years and still hadn't finished his studies, and it was precisely there, in that void, where the first of many controversial accusations would begin, the oldest of them all. It all started in the late 1980s, when the dean of the Faculty of Chemical Engineering, Engineer Masahiro Iwanaga, reported that Acuña's time at the university was full of irregularities. One of the most surprising was that in the records from 1977, he appeared as having passed 48 credits in a single term, a number that any university student knows is almost impossible. Iwanaga also said he never remembered seeing him in his classes. Even so, he appeared with a passing grade in one of the courses he taught, even though he wasn't even enrolled. Faced with these inconsistencies, the dean refused to sign the bachelor's degree and declared several academic documents null and void for what he considered to be a ghost student. But despite the scandal, time and power prevailed. In September 1995, the National University of Trujillo awarded César Acuña the title of chemical engineer, 23 years after his admission, after presenting a questionable thesis of just 50 pages titled Design of the Separation Equipment in a Plant for Natural Gas Treatment. This episode would mark the beginning of a long chain of academic controversies that would follow him for the rest of his public life. Apparently, in the 1980s, Acuña had vast experience with the ways to get into university, but he was completely unfamiliar with the path to successfully graduate from it. However, for the purposes of his business, that didn't matter in the slightest. The Pre-University Engineering Academy was an immediate success at its new location. Its students began to take the top spots in the admission processes. Trujillo newspapers like La Industria and Satellite published full pages listing students admitted after being trained in their classrooms. Thanks to this, enrollment kept growing nonstop. More sections were opened each term, and the classrooms ended up holding up to 60 students each, stacked on long wooden benches, focused under the northern heat. But the dizzying growth of the business also brought the first conflicts. When the lease expired, Acuña refused to return the property. The owner, Jose Lynch Gamero, demanded it in every possible way, even turning to the press to publicly denounce the illegal occupation of his property. Even so, the refusal persisted, and he had no choice but to start a legal process that would last for years. During that time, the academy continued to operate normally, growing and generating increasingly higher income. While the process moved slowly through the courts, Acuña took advantage of every extra month to consolidate his first major economic base. Documents from the case file and journalistic records confirm that even though the Superior Court of La Libertad ruled twice in favor of the owner, the eviction was not carried out until the Supreme Court issued the final order. More than 4 years had passed since the contract expired when Acuña finally had to leave the premises. After having used it unfairly, taking advantage of a weak, slow, and permissive judicial system. In retrospect, that behavior seemed to fit perfectly with a phrase his father used to repeat to him and his brothers, almost like a life philosophy. For there to be a smart one, there has to be a fool. César left the premises, but not his project. During the years the dispute lasted, something much bigger had started to take shape in his mind. It was clear that parents, even without belonging to the middle class, were willing to make huge financial sacrifices just to secure their children's education. So, why settle for a pre-university academy where each student's stay was so brief? Why not aim higher and create a private university directly? The high demand for pre-university education had revealed a huge gap. Thousands of young people wanted to access higher education, but the country's educational offerings were small, rigid, and exclusive. At that time, getting into a university in Peru was extremely difficult. Even at the most expensive ones, the demand far exceeded the supply. César Acuña recognized and understood that collective frustration. Using the income he earned in the 80s, Acuña gathered enough capital to launch his most ambitious project. To establish a private university providing opportunities to youth excluded from the Peruvian system, he started the paperwork with CONAFU, the National Council for the Authorization of University Operations. And on November 12, 1991, Law 25350 was enacted, which officially authorized the creation of César Vallejo University in the city of Trujillo. Acuña was 39 years old when he took that decisive leap. The beginning was modest. In its first year, the university had only 58 students, most of whom hadn't gotten into National University of Tucumán. His strategy for growth was clear and disruptive. He bet on inclusion, flexibility, easy payment options, and above all, the promise of something longed for by both parents and children, a university degree. Acuña never limited access. That was his differentiator. Thanks to that, the university began to grow steadily, and when the income increased, he knew how to reinvest it quickly. New classrooms, improved infrastructure, and modern equipment all indicated expansion. In 1996, Alberto Fujimori's government passed a law to promote investment in education, in line with neoliberal policies supported by the World Bank and Inter-American Development Bank. That law facilitated private investment at all educational levels, including higher education. That was the decisive push for Acuña's project to stop being local and become a nationwide educational network. At the beginning of the 2000 SUCV was already emerging as one of the private universities with the highest enrollment rates in Peru. First, it conquered the north, Chiclayo, Piura, Chimbote, then spread to Lima and other regions. This was also achieved thanks to an aggressive and sustained training campaign that reached both public and private schools. Seeking to win loyalty from third-year high school students through academic competitions, vocational guidance talks, and leadership meetings, César Acuña often participated personally, building his image as a benefactor concerned about youth futures. Over time, he became the most sought-after graduation sponsor in Trujillo. The schools competed for his presence and for the financial support he provided for the end-of-year parties. For Acuña, All of this was a strategic investment. Each celebration was a showcase to address the parents directly, offering scholarships and guaranteeing the top 10 students direct admission to UCV. He also offered half scholarships to children of police, teachers, and military, promising low fees and nearly guaranteed degrees. With this formula, Acuña University achieved mass enrollment, loyalty, and rapid expansion. And, almost without intending to at first, he began to build a powerful social base, a platform for public visibility that he would soon channel toward a new goal, a career in politics. This wasn't sudden, he'd been developing it for years. In fact, in 1990, he officially took the first step by running for Congress with the Socialist Left Movement. It was a discreet candidacy, practically unnoticed, but it marked his entry into the political arena. During the following years, while UCV grew and became more established, Acuña continued building networks and strengthening ties with local authorities, using the university as an instrument of influence, a meeting point between education, social needs, and political capital. A decade later, he tried again. This time, he joined the National Solidarity Party, led by Luis Castañeda Locio. He was finally elected as a congressman of the Republic. In the turbulent elections of the year 2000, the ones marked by the controversial re-election of Alberto Fujimori. His time in Parliament, however, would be as brief as the regime itself. Just weeks after being sworn in, Acuña resigned from the National Solidarity Caucus and declared himself an independent congressman. It was a common move in those days. Dozens of parliamentarians did the same after passing through the famous National Intelligence Service room, where Vladimiro Montesinos bought support to strengthen the ranks of Fujimorismo. César Acuña also visited the National Intelligence Service, although with different intentions. The questions are inevitable. Did he actually meet with Vladimiro Montesinos? Did he receive money from him? Did he need that money? All these questions are part of an interesting and complex story. To be able to explain it in detail without digressing too much, I will reveal it in a separate video exclusive for the members of this channel. Join this community that grows every day and enjoy César Acuña and Vladimiro Montesinos. What happened at the National Intelligence Service, along with many other untold stories. In this way, you also support the growth of this project. The regime of Alberto Fujimori and Vladimiro Montesinos fell, and with it, César Acuña's position as a congressman. However, he would be re-elected just a year later, in the 2001 elections, this time running for the center-right alliance called National Unity, led by Lourdes Flores Nano. But, as was becoming routine, his time in the caucus would be brief. Just like in his previous term, Acuña left the party that had welcomed him. In December of that same year, he took a decisive and revealing step regarding his true ambitions. He officially founded his own political party, which he called Alliance for Progress. During this second and longer congressional term, Acuña focused his agenda on bills related to education, promoting from Parliament a regulatory framework favorable to private investment in that sector, fully aligned with the model he himself had developed and from which he was the main beneficiary. At the same time, he was consolidating his territorial power in the north of the country. La Libertad became his political stronghold. There, Alianza para el Progreso built a lasting presence in district and provincial municipalities, forming a network of local authorities loyal to his leadership. APP positioned itself as a regionalist, pragmatic movement, avoiding grand ideology and focusing on building political control from local to national levels. Acuña was not only its central figure, but also the main financier of its expansion. The party grew with its resources, and its structure became a direct extension of his economic and personal power. With his sights set on the 2006 general elections, Acuña decided to take the big leap in a strategic move. He gave up the presidential candidacy to former Congressman Italian Primo and placed himself as the first vice president. In this way, he could simultaneously try for his re-election as a congressman. However, the gamble did not succeed. At the national level, Alliance for Progress barely reached 2.3% of the legislative votes, while the Imprimo Acuña ticket got only 0.4% in the presidential election, far from surpassing the 4% electoral threshold. The outcome was clear. APP lost its registration, and César Acuña failed to renew his parliamentary seat after July 2006. It was a significant political setback, but far from meaning the end, this stumble would only mark the beginning of a new stage in his path to power. Acuña had lost his seat, but he was not willing to step away from politics. So that same year, he decided to aim for a new position of power and ran for the provincial mayor's office of Trujillo. It was his first attempt in the local executive branch, and against all odds, he was elected mayor for the 2007-2010 term, winning a decisive 56.5% of the votes. The victory was historic. It not only marked his comeback, but also dealt a direct blow to APRA, the party that for decades had considered Trujillo its strongest and most loyal territory. The defeat was so harsh that Alan Garcia himself publicly lamented it, describing it as a stab in the heart. A fall that, in his own words, had cost him many tears. This period as mayor represented Acuña's first executive position and a turning point in his political career. From the municipality of Trujillo, he focused on visible public works, social programs, and maintaining a constant public presence. At the same time, he continued using his own financial resources as a central tool to strengthen his image and consolidate his project. In the city, he was often seen leading major events, distributing scholarships and making direct donations. His style was unmistakable, a calculated mix of public philanthropy and electoral calculation. Each act built a network of gratitude and personal loyalty around him. For some, that represented a genuine social commitment. For others, it was clientelist populism, a way to condition aid on political support and to deliberately erode the rules of democratic competition. Thanks to his electoral strategies, Acuña won again in the 2010 municipal re-election, although this time with a smaller margin, 43.9% of the votes. The victory was then seen as confirming his leadership in Trujillo. However, as the years went by, it would be revealed that behind that victory, a shady strategy had been deployed. In 2013, an important video from March 18, 2010 surfaced. In those images, César Acuña could be seen meeting with leaders of his party, with district and provincial candidates, giving precise instructions. He coldly and deliberately orders the identification of 100 families in each of Trujillo's 100 poorest neighborhoods, totaling 10,000 families, with a concrete objective to secure their votes in exchange for food supplies and the promise of a monthly payment. Acuña then does a mathematical calculation. If each family has 5 voters, that's already 50,000 votes. But that's not the entire strategy. It also included giving out checks of 5,000 sols, financed with municipal money, to 308 public schools and 3,000 sols to the 496 community kitchens throughout the province. This way, he would create gratitude, dependence, and political support from as many voters as possible. In that same meeting, Acuña went even further. He explained bluntly that the real goal was to win re-election in Trujillo and then run as a presidential candidate. Amid applause and shouts of "Acuña president," he assured his inner circle that even if he didn't win the presidency, it would be enough to get 12 or 14 congressmen elected to become a decisive player in national power, a power he promised to share with all of them. And amid celebrations, he ended his speech with a phrase that would completely define him, a brutal and direct promise that would be etched in the country's memory.
Money like a playing field for you all.
Money like a playing field for you all. Why did he promise that? How could holding a public office guarantee abundant money? How do you explain that certainty of immediate wealth? Where would so much money come from? The answer fits in a single word: corruption. Of course, César Acuña denied being corrupt, which is very common. No one has ever admitted to being one. He claimed the famous phrase referred to his own lawful money and his legitimate choice to fund the campaign with private resources, a carefully crafted technical explanation designed to fit within legal boundaries. But just by watching the full video carefully, paying attention to the gestures, the tone, the context, the truth starts to seep through the cracks in his speech. After the images were released, a criminal case was opened for alleged voter inducement and falsification. The prosecutor's office even requested 9 years in prison. However, despite the strength of the audiovisual material, the case ended in a definitive acquittal and was closed. Legally, the episode was closed, but in the collective memory, it was sentenced and in a harsher, more lasting way. Since then, no one doubted what César Acuña was made of the mentality that lived in that man who had come from the bottom and climbed up with effort, intuition, and vision, but also with shortcuts, with strategies always far from ethics. Had it been like that from the beginning? Acuña had been operating under a mentality deeply rooted in broad sectors of the country, under the belief that the smartest one is the slickest, the craftiest, the most streetwise, the one who knows how to get ahead, to take advantage of an opportunity, even if to do so, he has to step over others, over the rules, or over justice. It's a way of being and thinking that doesn't see the law as a limit, but as an obstacle that must be overcome with cunning. People like that live in a world where nothing is really forbidden, where honesty is seen as a weakness, a naivety that gets in the way and slows things down, that isn't productive. A world where decency isn't a virtue, but a flag that only fools raise. César Acuña not only lived by that view of life and politics, but also normalized and spread it. As his own brother, Virgilio Acuña, would say, César established in my family the culture of the craftiest. And unfortunately, he managed to spread it much further, turning it into a method and finally into power. As a result, in 2010, he won the municipal re-election he wanted, maintaining uninterrupted rule in Trujillo from 2007 to 2014. During those years, he not only managed the city, but also built alliances, brought new figures into his party, and worked meticulously on his political project, on growing the APP brand, even when he couldn't shake off the controversies. The sanctions kept piling up, but none seemed enough to stop his progress. Acuña was punished several times for violating the principle of electoral neutrality required of officials in office, from openly favoring the congressional candidacy of his son, Richard Acuña, to appearing in advertisements for the then presidential candidate, Pedro Pablo Kuczynski. All of this while he continued serving as mayor. These actions led to at least 5 administrative sanctions from electoral authorities. The blows kept coming, but they didn't take him out of the game. Acuña seemed to know, control, and enjoy one of Peru's unwritten rules, the one everyone recognizes and judges, but that sadly still persists. Whoever has money can do practically whatever they want, from evading justice to softening the inevitable blows. In 2012, the National Office of Electoral Processes imposed a historic 9.3 million sol fine on his party. It was confirmed that Alliance for Progress had received financial contributions 10 times greater than the legal limit, coming from César Vallejo University. Acuña illegally funded his party with resources from his largest company. Peruvian law explicitly forbids legal entities from making such large contributions to political campaigns. However, once again, the punishment was not definitive. The fine was not paid within the established deadline, and over time it ended up being reduced to 1/5. By 2014, despite the accumulated scandals and constant media scrutiny, César Acuña had managed to establish himself as a regional political boss. With that power base, he chose to run for regional governor of La Libertad. He won at the polls again and took office on January 1, 2015, adding a new title to his career, that of regional president. But his time in office would be brief. Just 10 months after being sworn in October 2015, Acuña resigned from the governorship to formally launch his presidential candidacy. With his sights set on the 2016 general elections, the decision was harshly criticized by broad sectors of the people of La Libertad, who accused him of having used the position as a mere political springboard, one that seemed to work. In November 2015, national polls ranked Acuña third in voting intention, behind Keiko Fujimori and Pedro Pablo Kuczynski, pushing none other than Alan Garcia into fourth place. His image as a successful businessman and an outsider figure, despite his years in local politics, clearly worked in his favor. All signs showed this man from Cajamarca, who built an educational empire and dominated the North politically, was ready to seek national power. But the top still had a fall prepared for him. Maybe César Acuña didn't realize that this contest wouldn't be as friendly as a municipal or regional race. The presidential race was ruthless, a battlefield with no truces, no breaks, no concessions. And candidate Acuña arrived with too many cracks, open wounds that were exposed in a real shark tank, and as expected, they all tore him apart. He had been divorced from his children's mother for over 10 years when personal conflicts began to erupt. It came to light that in 2011, his ex-wife, Rosa Nunez, had filed a complaint with the prosecutor's office, accusing him of money laundering. In it, she pointed out alleged irregular handling of the money generated by the educational empire, claiming an imbalance in assets and suspicious movements of funds in accounts linked to César Vallejo University. The complaint was no small matter. It led the prosecutor's office to open an investigation for alleged money laundering that directly involved the university's accounts. Of course, this was not his only business. In 1996, 5 years after UCV was founded, Acuña created his own professional soccer club. It adopted the same name and colors as the university, serving as a powerful marketing platform, an emotional vehicle for identity and belonging. To reinforce the strategy, that same year, he created a regional television channel called UCV Satelital, based in Trujillo, with an editorial line openly dedicated to promoting his image and that of his institution. But the scheme didn't end there. In 2001, he founded Señor de Sipan University in Chiclayo, which was later transferred to his ex-wife in their separation agreement. In 2004, he further expanded his involvement in the educational world and founded Harvard College in Piura, a private pre-university school directly linked to César Vallejo University. The striking and strategically chosen name soon brought him problems. Indecopi sanctioned the institution with 15 UITs for intellectual property infringement, considering that the name constituted trademark plagiarism. As a result, the school was forced to change its name and became UCV College. That same year, he founded the Academia Ingeniería School in Trujillo, reviving the name of the academy with which he had started his business journey decades earlier. The project combined the intensive pre-university preparation methodology with secondary education, thus completing the full circle of his educational model. School, academy, and university are all linked by the same early recruitment logic. In 2007, 3 years later, he founded the Universidad Autónoma del Perú in Villa El Salvador, aiming to provide affordable higher education. By then, his influence was already clearly spreading throughout the entire educational system, from schools to universities, both in Lima and in various regions of the country. But education wasn't his only area of growth. Acuña also invested in real estate and construction companies, which would soon face major controversies. These exploded with even more force after his presidential candidacy. Some of these companies were accused of having been favored in public works contracts, allegedly taking advantage of his political influence. Former Lima councilman Carlos Calderon reported that César and his son Richard Acuña allegedly created a business network to profit from multi-million-dollar municipal contracts. Companies like Alpamosac, as well as the Sewane and Jerusalem consortiums, linked to close associates or family members, were allegedly used as fronts to win public works contracts in Trujillo through suspected influence peddling. For example, Alpamosac, a company linked to a treasurer of Cesar Vallejo University, obtained contracts worth 4.14 million soles between 2011 and 2015 with the district municipality of La Esperanza, which at the time was governed by a mayor from the Alliance for Progress Party. Another well-known case involved construction company LCYEC, founded by 23-year-old Lucero Coca Condori, who, despite no prior experience or technical background, quickly secured over 300 million soles in contracts from the regional government of La Libertad. Irregularities in public fund use also began to surface. One of the most questioned was the accelerated sale of municipal land at ridiculously low prices in 2011 when Acuña was serving as mayor of Trujillo. These were quick and non-transparent transactions that raised serious suspicions about the fate of the city's assets. Another memorable event was buying Christmas Panettones. Acuña approved a municipal subsidy of 48,000 soles in favor of a member of his own party for their production. Those Panettones not only had his name and photograph on them, but they were also distributed at clearly political campaign events. All of this happened while he was still serving as mayor. The controversies didn't end there. During his brief term as regional governor of La Libertad, Acuña became linked to the third stage of the Chavimochic project, one of the country's largest irrigation works, which was awarded to the Odebrecht and Graña y Montero consortium. In that context, he was accused of alleged crimes of aggravated collusion, incompatible negotiation, passive bribery, and usurpation of functions, including the signing of irregular addenda to benefit the consortium. The pattern was starting to repeat with unsettling clarity. According to a report from the Public Prosecutor's Office in 2017, César Acuña accumulated 23 complaints for alleged acts of corruption in different regions of the country. Several of them were filed away, others remained pending, but they all shared something in common at the end of the road, a conclusion that repeated itself over and over again, a constant called impunity. Christopher Acosta, author of the book Plata como Cancha, a work that César Acuña tried to silence through a lawsuit for 100 million soles. I highly recommend it to anyone wanting to explore this and other documented cases further. He sums it all up in one devastating and precise sentence. If César Acuña weren't rich, he would be in prison. You can't review his career without repeatedly encountering accusations. Accusations that haven't faded over time, but instead keep piling up to this day, growing like a persistent shadow. By the 2016 elections, there were already too many, and the whole country started to scrutinize him closely, to lose trust in him. However, there was a series of scandals that had a particularly strong impact on public opinion, to the point of even overshadowing the accusations of corruption, cronyism, or misuse of public funds. These were the cases of plagiarism. In January 2016, months before the election, the first bombshell hit. César Acuña was found to have plagiarized both his academic theses. First, the master's thesis in education administration, submitted at the University of Lima, where at least 4 different types of plagiarism were detected. Then, the doctoral thesis in education at Complutense University of Madrid, in which identical paragraphs were found, taken from other people's work, shamelessly and brazenly copied. But that wasn't all. Almost at the same time, it came to light that years earlier, Acuña had published a book under his name titled Educational Policy, which had actually been written by his former professor and later employee, the educator Otonio Alvarado. In short, he was accused of fully taking credit for a book he hadn't written. Alvarado denounced him publicly, pressured by the press, faced with evidence, and lacking a solid defense. Acuña said a phrase that would be etched in the collective memory and become a joke in one of the many memes that would follow. It's not plagiarism, it's copying. The phrase stirred mixed emotions, making it hard to choose between outrage and laughter, creating awkward embarrassment and confusion. And that feeling wouldn't be fleeting. On the contrary, it would repeat itself over and over until it became a habit. Acuña would end up showing the whole country that his talent for accumulating wealth and power was not accompanied by any real intellectual background. It wasn't just a lack of eloquence, but something deeper. Acuña proved unable to form long sentences without basic errors or to organize and express moderately complex ideas. He lacked the basic intrinsic instincts typical of someone who had genuinely spent time in university classrooms. Syntax, semantics, coherence. Each public statement exposed a contradiction that was impossible to hide. The man who had founded universities and handed out degrees, who boasted of holding master's and doctoral degrees, didn't even master the most basic tools of language, something deeply inappropriate for someone who claims to be an educational role model, an architect of the intellectual future of thousands of young people. The scandal had immediate consequences. It led to the resignation of Francisco Miro Quesada Rada, then rector of César Vallejo University, who stepped down in protest against his boss's plagiarism. These acts damaged his and the institution's reputations. But while Acuña was trying to contain the damage caused, a new controversy, much more lethal, began to emerge, this time to definitively sink his presidential candidacy. In February 2016, videos surfaced showing him offering cash to potential voters during campaign activities, a practice expressly prohibited by electoral regulations. The footage was explicit and hard to refute. In them, César Acuña could be seen handing out sums of 5,000 and even 10,000 soles to groups of merchants and neighbors during public rallies. At a market in Chosica, he offered 10,000 soles to help 200 families keep working. And in Piura, he gave 5,000 soles to a young man in a wheelchair. These were not isolated gestures. He used the same method in 2010 to win re-election as mayor of Trujillo. The evidence turned out to be overwhelming. After verifying the facts, the National Office of Electoral Processes and the National Jury of Elections decided to exclude him from the electoral race. His legal team appealed tirelessly, but the ruling was final. For the first time, money wasn't enough. Acuña came up against a power greater than his own, with interests placed above his image and fortune. However, the story didn't end there. Although excluded from the presidential election, his party joined the legislative elections. Alliance for Progress gained national representation for the first time, winning 9 seats in Congress. Despite everything, he had done it. He had become a political actor with real power, just as he had promised years before in 2010 during that private meeting where he offered his people money like water. After all these events, Acuña could no longer go unnoticed. Every gesture, every move he made began to be subjected to relentless public and media scrutiny. The scandals kept appearing, from old accusations that resurfaced with force to new episodes that were added to an ever-growing list. Impossible to cover completely in a single video. These start from his early years with the way he finished his university career, the proven plagiarism in his theses, and in the books published under his name, or the public accusations of domestic violence made by his ex-wife Rosa Núñez, who claimed to have been beaten, mistreated, and humiliated. Statements very similar to those that years later, in 2017, his former partner Jenny Gutierrez would make. To these are added accusations of vote buying, misuse of public funds, influence peddling, systematic favoritism toward his universities, concealment of assets, nepotism, illicit enrichment, exploitation of poverty, and many more. And even so, despite the magnitude of the list and the repeated evidence, César Acuña has come out unscathed from all of them. And even worse, there are still people who continue to trust him. In a man who turned his fortune into a shield, into armor against justice, against consequences. A man who would be in prison if the law worked effectively, if it didn't favor the most powerful. But that's not the case. And that reality is what has allowed him to keep accumulating money, influence, and power. To me, César Acuña represents the two faces of modern Peru. The first is positive, that of a hard-working and persistent man, able to identify opportunities where others would only see shortcomings and to pursue them tirelessly. It is this side that still inspires support, which explains why many people continue to believe in him. The second face, however, reveals a regrettable side, a man who combines cunning and dishonesty. The sly one, the Criollo, the one who feels no guilt in breaking the law, nor any qualms about cheating if the goal justifies it. This is a story that hasn't ended yet. Its pages continue to be written as time goes by, and everything indicates that it still has several chapters left. Maybe a second part will come later. Comment on which other characters you would like to have a story on this channel. See you in the next one. Goodbye.